most beloved games of all time that has been awarded many of acclaim awards. It's broken Guinness World Records, and 2 decades later is still considered one of the best games of all time.
Yeah, I'm Cody from Zelda Universe. Ocarina of Time was my first Zelda game. I remember renting it from Blockbuster. And then I think I had it for a week, and then we said, no, we're going to have to extend.
So if we travel back in time, more than 2 decades, Ocarina of Time was in development at a time when 3D games were new. It was still a new concept. A lot of the developers didn't know exactly what they were doing. They didn't know the full capabilities of 3D game development. And they also encountered a lot of challenges, particularly around the camera, combat, aligning the player character with different items, characters, enemies, particularly in a third-person 3D game, which Ocarina of Time was. With the first-person games, the camera would be tied to the player, but in games like Ocarina of Time, the camera was also separate. The panel, if you could just talk about some of your early experiences with 3D games.
Solutions were really just so good that the developers have just consistently stayed with them because, like, what could you do that was possibly better?
Yeah, but not just the Zelda franchise. I mean, so many games borrowed elements of Ocarina of Time. Now, the other thing that, when we do talk about the Zelda franchise, the thing that was really different was that there'd been 4 previous Zelda games, I guess 7 if you want to count the CGI. But yeah, most of those games all used a 2D, a top-down view. Apart from, Zelda 2 and Link's Awakening had some side-scrolling sections too, but generally the environments in the 2D Zelda games, you could see everything that was around you. But when you transition to 3D, all of a sudden, there could be enemies sneaking up behind you that you're not aware of and things like that. So it's definitely a big change. So for those of you, I guess it's mostly David and myself actually, who had played Zelda before Ocarina of Time, or if you went back and played the 2D games afterwards, how did you find that transition to 3D, and what were your expectations going into Ocarina of Time?
I think for me, the main thing was, like, when I was playing Link to the Past, like, you had this entire situational awareness where, enemies, you'd have Octoroks that were shooting rocks from every different direction. You had to, you'd have enemies teleporting from place to place, and you'd have to then relocate them, reposition, and redo that. And Ocarina of Time had to change a lot of the semantics for that. You really couldn't, it really became unfair because you had such a limited focus of the screen. You couldn't have an enemy that would just magically teleport behind you and shoot a fireball at you, because that would be a little unfair. You'd have to have somebody that would be at least some indication of he's moving from here to here so I can actually follow and track him. And even then they'd have to have a little pause before he could attack you, because you have to train your eye to your camera to where it is so that it actually felt fair. So combat had to be a little bit different. I mean, it certainly felt very natural at the time because the combat had to slow down and change pace to make things work. If you actually go through the N64, and actually I think the 3DS Kokiri Forest, there is not actually, except for the Deku tree, there is no single live tree. There's pictures of trees, there's off in the distance, but you never actually see a real tree. But yet your mind fills in those details, and you actually can, this is a forest, how could it not be forest?
Well,
I see trees.
Tree houses, yeah, but when you look at them, the tops are missing, aren't they?
Yeah, you don't see a live tree with the leaves and whatnot, you just see pictures of trees. So it really but it still felt the part, even though, just that way, your imagination kind of filled in the details. And I think they did a really clever job of making it feel like that without realizing, oh, well, I have to make this, tree that I can count the polygons on, and it has to look like a tree.
But also, the camera only loads in what's directly in front of Link. So anything that's behind him or off to the sides isn't loaded into the game. It's only as you move around that the game loads that in, which is, I thought, pretty cool.
Think about, Ocarina of Time is 32 megabytes. That's all the space it has. So when you think about, you download that, Netflix is that would be 10 seconds of video or something, I don't know what it is. But that's all the space they had for the entire story of the game. And so, yeah, they had to do a lot of cutting down and paring things about, but then to trick your mind into still visualizing the spaces as real spaces.
Yeah, and how little space they used in some of these games. I think there was the Game Boy Mario Land might have used 32 kilobytes or something. and you go back and you look at it and you go, how did I take photos now on my phone, and it's like an Ocarina of Time's worth of photo.
Probably taken more than that here at PAX. Yeah.
How many Ocarina of Times is this?
There's something else that Ocarina of Time did that was quite revolutionary at the time was in-game tutorials. I mean, that's basically what the Kokiri Forest is.
Hey, listen.
And it felt really seamless at the time, but actually it was something that was quite new.
They experimented with it a little bit in Link's Awakening because they had a couple of the kids are like, hey, if you want to do this thing, press the A button. What does that mean? I don't know. Like literally, lamp shading.
Yeah.
Oh, there's buttons. What? So like, but this is now part of it. Like all of the characters said, like, oh yeah, sell me something with C, and I'm like, how do you know about the C stick? I don't know. Like that. But that was just kind of how they did it. It's like, okay, well, we're going to teach you how to do this thing, and we're going to just use the buttons as part of the regular text, and that became this thing of like, we're kind of going to reduce your dependence on manuals. And I come from a day where I loved the manuals. I would pore over them day after day, and it kind of makes me sad that modern games don't have them more. So it kind of was a new way of teaching gamers how to play.
Because I think it worked really well for Ocarina of Time because 3D was new.
Yeah.
And then Zelda fans got more and more frustrated by the time Skyward Sword rolled around, and there was like, oh, you picked up an item for the 35th time. Hold on, let me just tell you what it is again. People are going, I hate tutorials. Just never tell me a tutorial again.